The search for survivors is underway after a devastating earthquake hit western Haiti Saturday morning. Haiti's Civil Protection Service had already confirmed hundreds dead as of Saturday afternoon, but experts fear that number will climb much higher. Video shows badly damaged and crumbling buildings throughout the region. The epicenter was about 70 miles west of the Haitian capital, Port-au-Prince. The nation's prime minister declared a 1-month state of emergency. He also says he wants a better understanding of the extent of the damage before asking for international help. He tweeted the government is working quickly to make the necessary arrangements to help people affected by the earthquake. He also asked that all Haitians stay united in this time of need. Meanwhile, President Biden authorized a U.S. response team to support search and recovery efforts and damage assessment. In a White House statement, he said the United States remains a close and enduring friend to the people of Haiti, and we will be there in the aftermath of this tragedy. I want to bring in William Barnhart. He's a geophysicist with the U.S. Geological Survey in Golden, Colorado. William, thank you so much for joining us. We know that this was a relatively shallow earthquake. Can you first walk us through the mechanism of the quake itself?
Yeah, so this earthquake, which occurred around 8:30 a.m. local time in Haiti, was a magnitude 7.2 earthquake. Now that's important context because, as many people remember, in February of 2010, there was an absolutely devastating earthquake in a similar region that was a magnitude 7. So this earthquake today was about 2 times larger than that previous earthquake in 2010. Similar to that 2010 earthquake, it was shallow. So that means that the ground shaking from this earthquake would have been quite extreme, and that's being borne out by some of the images of damage that are coming out of Haiti. It occurred within the same fault system, likely, as that 2010 earthquake. If there's any current silver lining with this earthquake, it's the fact that it occurred further away from the major population center of Port-au-Prince. Whereas in 2010, Port-au-Prince would have experienced extreme shaking. Today, it likely would have felt light to moderate shaking that would not have been nearly as destructive. Of course, there's other towns in the area, for example, Lakai, with a population of about 125,000 people, that was located very close to this earthquake and experienced very strong shaking as a result.
Yeah, certainly a lot of densely populated areas in the surrounding part of the country. The USGS issued a red alert after the quake. What does that mean in terms of potential damage and fatalities?
So what a red alert means is it takes into account the projected number of fatalities, which is based on an estimate of the shaking, the ground shaking caused by the earthquake, and how many people were exposed to it. And the current projections sit right now that the expectation is that there could be 10,000 or more fatalities resulting from this earthquake, which is a remarkable number. There's also potential economic losses as well due to the destruction of infrastructure and other causes. And those currently have been revised a little bit down throughout the day, but they stand at a pretty stark number of 6 to 60% of Haiti's GDP.
Yeah, those are some staggering numbers, hard to wrap your head around. Obviously, with any major earthquake, there's always the concern of aftershocks. Multiple aftershocks have already hit the region. How long do you expect those to continue?
The aftershocks, so today, since that earthquake, there's been 4 aftershocks of magnitude 5 or greater, which are earthquakes that, if they occur close enough to damaged infrastructure, damaged buildings, or close enough to buildings that perhaps weren't damaged but are of a type of unreinforced masonry, can still do a lot of damage to those buildings. Those aftershocks will continue through the coming days and the coming weeks. They will, ideally, as they normally do, start to decrease in frequency with time and decrease in magnitude with time. But there will be aftershocks. There will continue to be aftershocks, and they will be aftershocks that people will feel in that region and could potentially cause continued damage to buildings.
Now, the earthquake happened along the same fault zone, as the one that struck the country in 2010. Were you expecting another major earthquake?
Expected is an interesting term. I mean, we know that earthquakes happen within these plate boundary fault zones, and in different regions, researchers have different background knowledge on where these earthquakes might occur and how often they might occur. This fault system has experienced a number of large earthquakes in the past, even prior to the 2010 earthquake, some of which that have destroyed Port-au-Prince in the past. So it was known that portions of this fault zone did not slip in 2010. And so there's always the possibility for an earthquake like this. And even with this magnitude of earthquake, it does not cause the entire fault zone to release its strength. So there's the potential in the future for similar earthquakes like this, which is why it's so critical for people and for infrastructure to be prepared for such events, because it's not an if they're going to happen, it's when they're going to happen.
And over the course of the next days, weeks, months, there will be an outpouring of humanitarian support, search and rescue operations. What else will you be looking for as you continue to monitor this situation in the coming days?
So the USGS will continue to try to, as we get more information available, continue to refine what we know about the extent of the earthquake itself, exactly where it ruptured. We will continue to monitor the aftershocks and report on their potential impacts and continue to update some of the products that the USGS produces that give operational information about what those impacts are. And of course, if there's any larger earthquakes in the future, we will be there to respond to those and report on those as well. And then perhaps down the road, there will be more of a scientific response to this earthquake to try to better understand some of the long-term hazard in this region.
Some critical work that you and your colleagues do at the USGS. William Barnhart, thank you very much.